It's decided, my dad announced, like a judge handing down a sentence. Your sister gets your luxury SUV, she has kids. The dining room went still, except for the sound of forks and forced laughter. Mom nodded. Emily smiled. Even Aunt Linda murmured, "That's fair." I sat there, stunned, my heart beat louder than the clinking dishes. That SUV wasn't a toy, it was my company's vehicle, my livelihood. I'd just finished paying it off. Dad didn't even look at me when he said it, because in this family, decisions weren't discussions. They were verdicts. I reached into my bag and felt the edge of the gray folder I'd promised myself I wouldn't use. But when everyone nodded like my life was negotiable, I pulled it out. "Funny you should mention kids," I said softly. "Here's what Emily did with her last car." And Aunt Linda gasped. Sunday lunches at my parents' house always looked perfect from the outside: golden chicken, matching plates, laughter that sounded almost real. But I knew the truth. Every meal came with a price. Dad sat at the head of the table, like always, carving meat as if slicing through anyone's opinion. Mom passed around the gravy boat, smiling that tense, diplomatic smile she used whenever things got uncomfortable. Emily sat across from me, scrolling her phone between bites, pretending not to notice I was barely touching my food. "So," Dad said, clearing his throat. "About the car." I froze. Emily's eyes flicked up, expectant. "It's decided," he repeated. "Your sister gets your SUV. She's got 2 kids to haul around. It makes sense." I set my fork down. "The one registered to my company?" Dad waved a dismissive hand. "Oh, come on. It just sits in your driveway half the week." "It doesn't sit, Dad. It works. I drive clients in it." "Then drive them in your sedan," Mom interrupted gently. "You're single. You don't need something that big." Emily smirked. "Seriously, Abby, you can afford another one." That sentence hit harder than I expected. Because it wasn't just about the car, it was about every favor that was never a favor. Every small thing that turned into a financial sinkhole I was too polite to call theft. "I can afford it," I said slowly. "But that doesn't mean you get to decide what I do with it." Dad sighed, exasperated. "Don't start this again. Family looks out for family." I stared at him. "And who looks out for me?" The air shifted. Mom's smile faltered. Aunt Linda coughed softly, trying to break the silence. Emily muttered something under her breath that sounded like, "Drama queen." I felt the folder inside my bag pressing against my side, like a reminder. I'd brought it in case I needed proof. Proof of what my family liked to forget when they rewrote history around the dinner table. "Can we just eat?" Mom whispered. "Let's not ruin another Sunday." Too late, I thought. It was already ruined the moment they decided for me. The moment my own parents forgot I wasn't a child anymore. I smiled tightly and reached for my water glass. "Sure," I said. "Let's eat." But in my head, something clicked. If this was the game they wanted to play, then I was done pretending I didn't know the rules. People think family debt comes with receipts. It doesn't. It starts small, "Can you help me out until Friday?" Here, "Just this once." There, and before you realize it, your life becomes the family's emergency fund. It started years ago, right after I opened my event planning company. Business was slow, but I was proud. I'd built something of my own. That didn't stop my phone from buzzing every few weeks. "Dad, Abby, can you cover the electric bill? We'll pay you back next month." "Mom, your sister's daycare raised rates again. You know how expensive kids are." "Emily, Ben's hours got cut, just a short loan, promise." And I always said yes. Because I could. Because I remembered when I couldn't. At first, it felt good, like I was finally useful, reliable, the adult in the family. But generosity became expectation, and expectation turned into entitlement. The first favor was $50, then $300. Then my signature on Emily's car lease because, in Dad's words, "You have better credit." I told myself it was temporary. I told myself this was what family does. But every thank you came with another request. When my business finally took off: weddings, corporate events, sponsorship deals, the calls changed tone. They stopped asking if I could help, and started assuming I would. "Abby will pay," Dad said once, jokingly. When Mom wanted a new patio set, everyone laughed. I didn't. I started keeping a spreadsheet: dates, amounts, reasons. I wasn't keeping score. I was trying to stay sane. I wanted to prove to myself that this quiet exhaustion wasn't in my head. Still, I said yes, even when I didn't want to. Because it was easier than the guilt. Because no one likes the daughter who says no. One night, I was on a video call with a client while Emily texted nonstop about needing gas money. I sent it just to make her stop. A minute later, she posted a picture at a cocktail bar with the caption, "Finally a break." That was the first time I closed my laptop and screamed into a pillow. When I confronted her later, she rolled her eyes. "It's just $20, Abby. Relax." I wanted to. God, I wanted to. But that pattern, the constant taking, the emotional guilt disguised as family love had become a second job I never applied for. And the worst part? No one even noticed what it cost me. That SUV wasn't just a car. It was my boundary line. And now, they were crossing it again. The night it happened, I was halfway through designing a wedding seating chart when my phone rang. Emily's name flashed on the screen. It was nearly midnight. Her voice was trembling. "Abby, it's not that bad, okay? It looks worse than it is." My stomach dropped. "What are you talking about?" "There was a little accident. But Ben says the car's fine." "Where are you?" "Maple and 3rd. I knew that intersection, a blind curve, no streetlights, an old stop sign. By the time I got there, blue and red lights painted the night like a crime scene. Mom's silver sedan, which used to be mine before I gave it to Emily, was smashed against a pole. The airbags hung like ghosts. Ben stood off to the side, face flushed, waving his arms at an officer. "She overcorrected," he insisted. "The alignment's trash on this thing." "Oh, Des." Emily sat on the curb, mascara streaking down her cheeks, a cut on her wrist. "Are you okay?" I knelt beside her. She nodded quickly. "I wasn't drunk. I swear. I only had half a glass." Half a glass. The cop nearby didn't look convinced. They let her go after a breath test barely under the limit. But the report said it plain. Driver admitted alcohol consumption, loss of control, minor property damage. A week later, I got the call from the insurance company. The car was still under my name. I was the emergency contact. "Miss Carter, we just need your signature to finalize the claim." I didn't even argue. I signed. Because that's what I did. Cleaned up, paid up, shut up. Emily promised to cover the deductible. She never did. 2 months later, when I gently reminded her, she snapped. "God, Abby, it's just money. You act like I totaled your soul or something." That line stuck to my ribs. Because maybe she had. After that, I started printing everything. Emails, receipts, police reports. Not to weaponize them to remember. Because my family had a habit of forgetting their own mistakes and rewriting them as misunderstandings. So when Dad said, "Your sister gets your SUV," my first instinct wasn't anger. It was déjà vu. History repeating itself. Except this time, I wasn't the quiet cleanup crew. That gray folder on the passenger seat of my car, the one I brought to Sunday lunch, wasn't a threat. It was a timeline. A record of how many times I'd been made to feel like generosity was my only value. I told myself I wouldn't open it. I told myself I'd stay calm. But somewhere between "she has kids" and "be reasonable," something inside me snapped. And when I reached for that folder, I knew this time. I wasn't just bringing evidence. I was bringing the truth. It was a Saturday morning when I found out I'd been erased. I wasn't snooping, just scrolling through Instagram when my cousin Haley's story popped up. A cheerful screenshot of a family video call. 8 smiling squares. Dad, Mom, Emily and her husband, Ben, even Aunt Linda. Caption: "Family planning meeting, teamwork makes the dream work." I stared at it, cold spreading in my chest like spilled coffee. My face wasn't one of the squares. They'd held a family meeting without me. I took a screenshot before I could stop myself. Then my phone rang. "Mom." "Hi, honey. Just checking in. Are you coming for Sunday lunch tomorrow?" I swallowed. "Sure. Anything I should bring?" "Oh, dessert would be lovely. And your father wants to discuss something about the car." My throat tightened. "The SUV?" She laughed lightly. "Yes, dear. Don't be dramatic. We'll talk tomorrow." Click. Call over. Not even a pause long enough for me to ask why I hadn't been invited to the meeting. I sat there for a long time, staring at that screenshot. There it was, the whole family, grinning, plotting, deciding. That's when I pulled out the gray folder again. It was sitting in my desk drawer, buried under old contracts and invoices. I wiped off the thin layer of dust. Inside were copies of the police report from Emily's crash, receipts of payments I'd covered, and a spreadsheet I hadn't opened in months. Column after column of numbers, neatly labeled gas money, car repairs, daycare fees, credit card holds. It looked sterile, but every line was a bruise. For a moment, I almost deleted it all. Maybe I was overreacting. Maybe I was the problem, the one who couldn't just let things go. Then a message pinged on my phone, a group text from Family Chat. I still hadn't left it. Dad, big talk tomorrow. Everyone, be on time. Don't start without dessert, Abby. Mom, make sure you print that recipe I love. Emily sent a laughing emoji. That was it. No hint, no warning, no inclusion. Just orders disguised as warmth. I leaned back in my chair and stared at the folder. I wasn't sure what hurt more, being excluded or realizing I hadn't even been surprised. For years, I'd accepted my role, the provider, the fixer, the quiet peacekeeper, but something about that photo, those neat, smiling boxes, made me see it clearly. I wasn't part of the family circle. I was the safety net underneath it. I closed the folder slowly and slid it into my bag. Not because I planned to use it, but because I finally understood. They only remembered me when they needed saving. Tomorrow, they'd remember me for a different reason. The smell of roast chicken filled the house when I arrived the next day. Everything looked perfect, as if nothing ugly could ever happen under that roof. Mom was arranging tulips. Emily was laughing about something Ben said. For a second, I almost convinced myself I could pretend again. Then Dad cleared his throat. Everyone here? Good. He tapped his fork against his glass like he was hosting a board meeting. Let's make this quick. It's decided your sister gets your SUV. She has kids. She needs the space. The room didn't go silent. It buzzed little approving hums, nods, the clink of glasses. Emily smiled at me over her wine glass, like she was doing me a favor by taking it. Wait, I said. You've decided that without me? Dad didn't even blink. You've always been practical, Abby. You'll understand. Understand? My voice came out sharper than I meant. That my work car, the one registered to my company, just got reassigned like it's a hand-me-down stroller? Don't exaggerate, Mom said softly, refilling her own glass. You can afford another one. You're single, no kids. Emily's situation is different. Different how? I asked. Because she makes bad choices and I clean them up? Abby, Mom warned, her tone slicing through the air. Not at the table. That's the only place you people ever talk to me. Emily rolled her eyes. God, you're so dramatic. It's just a car. I felt heat crawl up my neck. You said the same thing about Mom's sedan last year. Remember how that ended? Emily's smile faltered. That wasn't my fault. The alignment was perfect until you drank half a bottle of Merlot and crashed it into a stop sign. Aunt Linda's fork froze midair. Oh my, she whispered. Dad's chair scraped loudly against the floor. That's enough, Abigail. Is it? I said, reaching into my bag. My fingers found the gray folder. Cold, heavy, unforgiving. I set it on the table. The sound of it landing was louder than any shout. Funny you should mention kids, I said, sliding it toward the center. Here's what your precious mother of two did with her last car. Mom blinked. What's that supposed to? I flipped the folder open. Photographs, crumpled hood, bent stop sign, police report, breathalyzer results, insurance forms with my name. Aunt Linda gasped out loud. Good heavens. Emily's face drained of color. Ben muttered. That's not fair. It's not fair? I snapped. You totaled a car under my name. I paid the deductible, the fine, and the towing. You never paid me back. Dad leaned forward, veins in his neck visible. Are you trying to humiliate your sister in front of family? No, I said calmly. I'm trying to stop you from stealing from me again. You watch your tone, young lady. No, you watch yours, Dad. Because every time you say, family looks out for family, what you really mean is Abby pays for everyone else's mistakes. Silence. Thick and sudden. Even the kids upstairs stopped running. Emily's lip trembled. You've changed. Good, I said. Because the old me would have said nothing. Mom reached for my hand, her voice syrupy sweet. Sweetheart, we're just being practical. I pulled away. Practical would have been telling me before you made the decision. Dad's jaw tightened. You're overreacting. Maybe, I said. But at least I'm reacting. Finally. Aunt Linda whispered. Let her talk, Tom. Dad glared but didn't stop me. I pointed to the folder. That's not just a mistake. That's a pattern. One you all keep pretending doesn't exist. Emily folded her arms. So, what now? You're keeping the car out of spite? No, I said. I'm keeping it because it's mine. And because the next time someone crashes under my name, my company could lose everything. You'd put business before family? Mom asked. I'd put sanity before guilt. The room went completely still. For the first time, no one had a comeback, not even Dad. I gathered the papers, slid them back into the folder, and stood up. Next time you make a decision about my life, I said quietly, make sure I'm in the room. No one said a word as I walked to the door. Behind me, the silence broke not with shouting, but with the sound of forks clinking against plates again, as if nothing had happened. But something had. For the first time in my life, I hadn't apologized. And that, more than any car, was the thing I planned to keep. Sit down, Abigail, Dad ordered. His voice carried that same authority that used to make me freeze as a kid. But not today. No, I said, my voice steady. I'm done sitting quietly while you all decide what's fair for me. He stood up, towering over the table. You're making a fool of yourself. Am I? I met his eyes. Or am I just not playing the fool anymore? Mom's voice trembled. Abby, please, this isn't how family talks. That's funny, I said, laughing bitterly. Because this is exactly how family talks, at least our family. You talk, I listen, you take, I pay. Emily slammed her palm on the table. You don't understand what it's like raising kids. Oh, I understand perfectly. I shot back. You make bad choices, and everyone else pays for them. Then you call it sacrifice. Her husband Ben muttered. That's low. Low? I snapped. What's low is letting me co-sign a car for you, crashing it, and then pretending it never happened. And Dad's face turned red. Enough. You think you're better than us because you make a few dollars more? This isn't about money, I said sharply. It's about respect, about boundaries. Boundaries? He spat the word like poison. Family doesn't need boundaries. We're supposed to share. Funny, I said, because sharing seems to go one way in this family. Aunt Linda's fork clattered onto her plate. Tom, she murmured softly, maybe listen. He cut her off. Stay out of this, Linda. Mom reached for my arm. Honey, we only want what's best for you. I pulled away. No, Mom. You want what's easiest for you. Emily's eyes glistened. You're punishing me for one mistake. One? I barked out a laugh. Emily, it's never just one. It's every late bill, every overdraft, every short loan, every time you show up crying and leave smiling while I fix your mess. Ben's phone buzzed on the table. He ignored it. The silence that followed was suffocating. Dad leaned forward, lowering his voice. You'd really do this to your own sister? I stared right at him. I'm not doing anything to her. I'm finally doing something for me. He jabbed a finger at the folder. That thing, those papers, what's your point? To embarrass us? To humiliate your family? My point, I said quietly, is that this, I gestured around the table, isn't family. This is manipulation dressed as love. Mom gasped like I'd cursed in church. Abigail! Dad's hand slammed the table so hard the plates rattled. If you walk out with that attitude, don't come crawling back when you need us. I rose to my feet. I haven't needed you in a long time. You just never noticed. Emily's voice cracked. You're choosing a car over us. I looked at her, really looked at the entitlement behind the tears. No, Emily, I'm choosing peace over chaos. You think saying no makes you strong? She sneered. I smiled sadly. No, it makes me free. Dad's mouth opened to fire back, but Mom grabbed his arm. Her voice was shaking. Tom, stop, please. For a heartbeat, no one moved. The only sound was the faint ticking of the kitchen clock, steady, merciless. I gathered my folder, slid it under my arm, and turned toward the door. Behind me, Dad's voice came again, sharp and final. You walk out that door, Abby. You're on your own. I turned, meeting his glare. Then I guess it's about time. I stepped outside. The sunlight hit my face like a slap and a blessing all at once. My hands were trembling, not from fear, but from release. For the first time in years, I wasn't swallowing my words. I was tasting them, and they were bitter, powerful, real. My phone buzzed in my pocket, messages already pouring in. Mom, you embarrassed us. Dad, you've changed. Emily, you'll regret this. I didn't respond. I slid into my SUV, the leather seat still warm from the Sunday. For a second, I just sat there, breathing. The same car they'd tried to take from me was now my witness, my shield, my freedom. As I turned the key, I looked at my reflection in the rearview mirror, eyes red, face pale, but steady. Not anymore, I whispered, and drove away. By the time I reached home, my phone was buzzing nonstop. It was like every family member had suddenly remembered how to use group chat just to attack me. Dad, you embarrassed your sister. Mom, you made a scene, Abigail. How could you do this in front of Aunt Linda? Emily, you're unbelievable. You humiliated me. Ben, you're messed up. It's just a car. I didn't even open the rest. I hit archive and watched the notifications vanish, one after another. Silence. It felt like air after drowning. For the first time in years, my apartment didn't feel small. It felt mine. I poured a glass of wine and sat on the couch, letting the quiet settle. No guilt, no performance, no reasonable daughter mask. Just me, the version they never wanted to meet. Then my phone buzzed again. A single text from Aunt Linda. Good for you, honey. Someone had to say it. I smiled. It wasn't much, but it was enough. The next morning, I opened my laptop and started untangling my life, one quiet act at a time. Step 1. Insurance. I called the company and removed every unauthorized name from my policy. When the representative asked, "Permitted drivers?" I said, "Just one, me." Step 2. Roadside assistance. I deleted Dad, Mom, Emily, and Ben from the trusted contact list. If their car broke down, they could call their own insurance this time. Step 3. Reclaim the SUV. I drove it to the detailing shop. Had the seats deep cleaned, the exterior polished, until it gleamed like new. When I picked it up, I asked the mechanic to apply fresh decals with my company's logo. Make it obvious, I said. This isn't a family car anymore. When I saw the finished result, the clean silver paint, the logo shining under sunlight, I almost cried. It wasn't just a vehicle now. It was proof I could draw a line and mean it. At work, my operations manager, Leah, pulled me aside. She'd been with me for years, practical, steady, the kind of friend who saw through everything. You look lighter, she said. Did something happen? I hesitated. Let's just say, I finally learned how to say no. Her smile was small but proud. Good. Because we need you focused. The school travel council meeting's tomorrow at 10. 10, I repeated, nodding. I'll be there. I meant it not the way I used to say yes just to please, but because I finally had room to show up where I wanted to. That night, I walked around my apartment, touching things I'd once taken for granted. The couch I bought with my own money. The coffee mug from my first client. The framed photo from my company's launch party, me and my team. Smiling, exhausted, proud. For years, I'd let my family drain me dry, convinced that love was a kind of currency I had to keep spending to prove it existed. But standing there, surrounded by the quiet hum of my own life, I realized something. Love doesn't require debt. Respect doesn't require sacrifice. My phone buzzed again, another incoming call from Mom. I let it go to voicemail. Her message was long, teary, manipulative. Abby, please, you're tearing this family apart. Emily's kids are confused. They think you don't love them. What are we supposed to tell them? I deleted it halfway through. They'd twist it however they wanted. I couldn't control that anymore. But I could control me. I sat by the window, watching the streetlights flicker, and whispered to myself, peace isn't selfish. It's maintenance. For the first time, I slept through the night. 2 weeks passed before I heard from Emily again. This time her tone was different. Abby, she said over the phone, her voice small. Our stroller doesn't fit in our car. I'm not asking for your SUV, I swear. Do you know anyone selling a used minivan? Maybe one of your clients? I stared out the window, watching rain streak the glass. For the first time, there was no edge in her voice, just exhaustion. Real, human exhaustion. Yeah, I said softly. I know a rental company rotating out vehicles. They're solid. I'll text you the contact. She hesitated. Thank you. I'll pay them directly. No middleman. No middleman. No me, I said gently. There was a pause. The kind where silence means understanding. Got it, she whispered, and hung up. It wasn't forgiveness, but it was something. A door cracked open, not wide, just enough for air to pass through. That weekend, Aunt Linda invited me to lunch at a small diner on the edge of town. She was waiting in a corner booth, 2 cups of coffee already steaming. You did the right thing, she said as soon as I sat down. Doesn't feel like it, I admitted. She smiled. It never does, when you're the first one to say no. Then she leaned closer. Your dad's planning some sort of family intervention. He wants to reconnect. I rolled my eyes. Let me guess, complete with a guilt slideshow. Pretty much, she grinned. My advice? Don't go. Or if you go, bring that folder. For the first time in weeks, I laughed a real laugh. Not defensive. Not bitter. Just free. I didn't go to the intervention. Instead, I sent flowers. Plain white lilies with a simple card that read, "Have a lovely afternoon, Abby." The next morning, I drove out to the coast. Gray sky, colder wind, quiet waves. I parked by the cliff and just sat there. No one asking for money. No one deciding for me. Just the sound of the sea, and my heartbeat sinking for once. As I watched the tide pull back and return again, I thought about that word, family. How it used to mean obligation, debt, noise. Now, it meant something smaller, but truer. It meant the people who show up. On Monday, I presented at the school travel council meeting Leah had scheduled. Parents, teachers, administrators all gathered in the cafeteria that smelled faintly of coffee and chalk. I talked about safe itineraries, medical insurance, what to do when a student gets homesick in Rome. They laughed in all the right places, nodded when I spoke about responsibility. Afterward, one of the moms came up to me. We've heard great things about you, she said. From Leah, from other schools. You really show up. She handed me a deposit check right there, smiling. I accepted it with steady hands. That moment felt bigger than any apology my family could have given. When I got home that evening, I found a postcard in my mailbox from a client family I'd helped weeks ago after their flight got canceled. The front showed their little boy in Italy, grinning, holding a gelato bigger than his head. On the back, it said, "We made it. You saved our trip. Thank you for showing up." And I pinned it to my fridge next to a sticky note that read, "No new entries." That night, I cooked pasta and watched a movie alone. For once, alone didn't mean lonely. It meant quiet, whole, mine. Halfway through, my phone buzzed. A photo from Aunt Linda. Emily's kids sitting in the back of a used minivan, grinning, crumbs everywhere. Her caption, "They did it." I stared at the picture for a while, then typed back a simple. Not because I didn't care, because that was enough. People love to say, family looks out for family. Dad used it like a weapon, but I've redefined it. Family isn't who drains you dry and calls it love. It's who stands beside you, no strings attached. My team, my friends, the clients who trust me, the people who show up, and maybe, someday, even Emily, if she learns to stand on her own too. As for me, I'm done being the quiet wallet. I'm the woman behind the wheel of her own life again. And this time, it's decided by me.